Okay, welcome to another edition of the Edlow Podcast. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. I know I always say I'm really excited for this next podcast, but this one I think I've done over 200 podcasts now, and I think that this one will definitely rank high on the importance scale. We've all heard the term gaslighting. If you doom scroll on Instagram or Facebook, I'm sure you've seen someone with some credentials talking about how to spot a narcissist or a gaslighter, how to know you've been gaslit. And everybody I know has feels like they have experienced it. And so I've been looking into this for a long time, and I was like, well, if we're gonna get this going, we're gonna have a conversation. I want to go to the source, and so I found the source, and so I have Robin Stern, a Ph.D., who is a licensed psychoanalyst, educator, author, and commentator. She co-founded the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. She currently serves as the senior advisor to the director, and she is the author of The Gaslight Effect: How to Spot and Survive the Hidden Manipulations Others Use to Control Your Life. Critically acclaimed book written in 2007, gone through a couple of editions, one in 2018, which I found, by the way, Dr. Stern, I found it quite interesting, the political realm of what you were talking about. That was really interesting. And then in 2023, created a workbook vision or version to help those navigating gaslighting relationships find recovery, and has also launched her own podcast, the Gaslight Effect podcast, in 2022. And she and her guests explore the phenomena of gaslighting from relationships to cults to culture. Did I do good for you? Was that a good introduction, Dr. Stern?
Great. I
Okay.
would just add to that, uh, a very happy wife and mother in New York. My kids are 38. My son is studying physics, and my daughter and practicing physics and physical oceanography, something that I know nothing about except when he tells me. And my daughter is 36 and in the field of peacemaking. She's the founding director of University of Peace in New York. And I'm very proud to be an ambassador of the University of Peace, which is a permanent mission member of the United Nations. And um,
Wow.
in fact, gaslighting and having environments that are not psychologically safe because they have gaslighting in them is pretty much the antithesis of a peaceful environment where people can be creative and thrive and feel the joy of respectful human relationships.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't. I'm curious. This is just a little off topic, but I was just talking to a partner at my law firm, and we were talking about. I've been asked to do some public speaking, and I have this podcast, and I've done all these different things, and we were talking about. We're like, wow, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago that we were kind of trudging the school and education and doing all this stuff, and I was like, and now people like think we know stuff. Like it's so shocking. Do you ever kind of pinch yourself and go, "Wow, like I'm an ambassador to peace." I mean, you worked with Facebook and worked with teens, learning how teens get gaslit on social media and teaching those things.
We worked with Google also. We had a project where we were helping the Google little square thing say things about feelings.
Yeah,
And in the early days of these devices getting more popular, I think, and
yeah.
getting
Isn't it do you ever feel like do you ever look at yourself and just kinda pinch yourself and like, "Man, how did I get so how did my resume get so awesome?" You know what I mean? Like, do you ever think like
well,
that?
in the sense that it's an interesting question. First of all, thank you for shining a light on gaslighting. Thank you for having me here. But that's a really interesting question because I've always been drawn to characters on TV and
Mm,
people in the news who are peacemakers and
mm.
who treat each other with kindness. And I always say that. Um, do you remember the child movie star Shirley Temple?
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
Shirley Temple, when I was very little, my mom used to plop me in front of the TV, and there'd be these reruns of these Shirley Temple movies, and I was so, in awe of the fact that she could solve world conflicts by being kind and being
Mm,
loving,
mm.
and I often credit her as, being my first role model for the work
Mhm.
I do in emotional intelligence and m peacemaking and healing in general.
Yeah.
And I don't so much think, "Oh my god," like, "look at my resume," as do I think, "I've been doing this my whole life."
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, one way or another, I've been thinking about this, like, why can't people be nicer? Why can't people be kinder? Um, Trying to help people as a
Yeah.
therapist,
Mhm.
be more themselves, be more in tune with what they want, with what they know,
Mhm.
and to be their best selves, as we say at the Yale Center. Um,
Mhm.
like, step into every interaction with what the person you wanna be at every moment and the person you want others to see. So, um, I feel like this is what my life is about, other than being a mom, which is also about
Yeah.
the kids and
Yeah. I
yeah,
can't wait till my kids get to you mentioned your kids are 38 and 36. I was just telling my son not too long ago, he's 19, he's on a mission. I get in Peru, and I get to talk to him
right.
once a week, and I told him, I'm like, "I'm just so excited to now kinda transition for" I've always kind of viewed him as, like, talking about TV, like, he's kind of a supporting character in my story, and now I get to kinda be the supporting character in his story, and I'm like, I'm kinda ready for that. I can't wait to see these kids. I'm about 5 years out from them all, you would hope they would all be off and starting their own independence, and I'm kind of excited to see where they end up. So that's pretty cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about your work in gaslighting. I've read some of your book. I haven't actually, the truth be told, just so I don't gaslight you. I I didn't finish it. I've gotten a few chapters in, but I remember as I was reading, I was like, I could probably ask you questions all day about this topic because it's so entangled, and it's become kind of synonymous with abuse. It's
Yes,
become kind of one of the things that are and you're very much heralded as the person who kind of started us down this road of making this part of the vernacular
yes.
of emotional
I'm
intelligence
very
and
proud of that, and I'll tell you the story.
yeah, tell me
Um,
the story.
so I had always loved the movie with Ingrid Bergman and Charles Boyer, the movie Gaslight, and,
Mhm,
I thought it was kind of amazing that here was this character, of course, it was Hollywood, but here was this character, and, she was so confident and, um, self-possessed, and then all of a sudden, well, not so much all of a sudden, but over time, in small doses, this man who she idealized, who she loved and gave over a lot of power to, um, tried to drive her crazy.
mhm,
Now, as the viewing audience, we knew that he was up to no good. He was really he was trying to steal her family jewels, uh,
mhm,
but he was trying to do that by getting her committed to an institution so he
mhm,
could go through her attic and get what he needed. And I just was
mhm,
fascinated at that as the story went on, that there was a moment where she went from, "Don't be silly,
mhm.
I'm not forgetful," to, "Gee, maybe I am forgetful.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I didn't realize." And those of us who have been gaslighted, and I include myself in that, and I'll tell you my own story in a minute, there is that moment, and it's
Mhm,
really fascinating. So and I'd like to come back to that, um, in a minute or 2, but with that as background, I was hearing story after story from women I was working with. My practice was, predominantly women in their 20s and 30s and for 40s, and part of that was that I was very involved in what was then a women's ethical leadership organization, so I would get a lot of referrals, and I'm New York based, and more women seek out therapy, at least they did in those days, and I think that's still true. And women was coming in, and they were just like that character. They were, confident and smart and, well-spoken and self-possessed and, um, in all of their relationships, including their work life, except for this one relationship. So I was seeing women who were very successful, who had families, who had jobs they loved, who were involved in organizations they were big parts of, even if they weren't working, as a job. and yet second guessing their own phone number when it came to the guy in their life, in
Mhm.
most cases.
Mhm.
So, of course, gaslighting happens to men. Gaslighting happens in same-sex relationships, but the pairing that I saw most often and wrote about, as having seen most often, was the woman coming in wondering if there was something wrong with her
Mhm.
or, um, what was going on, feeling completely out of sorts. And, of course, I think it would not surprise people to know that when women would come to my office, if they would have a bruise or they would be black and blue, or they could report that their partners or their husbands yelled at them and cursed at them, it would be easy to say, "He's horrible, he did this to me." But when there was this kind of fog around what actually had happened, or their husband was telling them things about themselves, they putting their character down, telling them they have no memory, they can't do anything. Suddenly, they would start pointing their fingers at themselves and they would say, "What's wrong with me?"
Yeah.
And I know from our earlier, before the recording conversation, that some people don't even know whether or not they're being gaslighted or they're doing the gaslighting. And one of the cases that I saw early on was a woman who came in and said, you know, my husband throws me against the wall, like literally grabs me by the neck and pushes me against the wall whenever I'm late from work. And and I don't think that that's right, but he says I'm abusing him because I'm late from getting home late from work, and he knows that I know that he doesn't like it when I'm late, but I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah.
And so, of course, she would then say, sometimes I couldn't help it, or sometimes I just needed to, I really wanted the extra time at work. And I was kind of scared of going home anyway, because what if the subway was late? But the woman was wondering whether or not she was even being abused
Mm.
because he told her, there's not a problem here with me. You're the one who did this. If you weren't late, I wouldn't have to grab you by the neck.
Yeah.
Don't even think about telling me there's something wrong with that.
Right. And that's, I've often told people when they talk about abuse and things of that nature, I've said, I go, I almost think that this type of manipulation is almost worse just because there is no bruise and there is nothing. And if you share what's going on with somebody who doesn't understand or isn't in kind of seeing it day to day, they'll even say, like, you gave a great analogy in the book, and I wanted to talk to you about this, where you talked about the woman at work who is getting railroaded by her boss, who the boss is eliminate, someone else gets the promotion and suddenly she's not coming to the meetings and she says, I think I'm being railroaded. And everyone around her is going, well, that's crazy because the person, he's saying such nice things about you while you're in there. And you go, and everyone around you is going, you're going like, well, it feels like and then you go to the person and the person goes, oh, I think you're being too sensitive.
Yes.
I think you're being too sensitive and maybe you need some time off.
Right.
That is, to me, the thing that is the most pervasive because you you start questioning your own sanity,
Right.
right? And you're like, maybe I'm getting crazy. But here's a question I have for you on that topic then. You talked about in the book, you talk about the gaslight tango, and it takes two people for gaslighting to happen. You have the person who's the gaslighter and the gaslightee.
Mm.
So the gaslighter is the one who is intentionally trying or is trying to get you to doubt your own reality for a sense of power and a sense of
Yeah.
control over the situation. And then you have the gaslightee who is allowing or is willing to doubt their own perceptions to keep this relationship going.
Yeah.
Right? Get that? Did I get that right?
You did, although, I can hear people who are listening to this saying, "Well, wait a minute, like, it's not my fault. Like, what do you mean
Yeah.
allow?"
Yeah.
And so I would, edit that to
Mhm.
say that, unwittingly. Most
Mm.
of the time when somebody, if you're dancing, somebody holds out their hand and invites you into the tango, right? And so
Yeah.
you are you may not know that that's what you're about to dance, right?
Right.
Give
Right.
him your hand.
Right.
And so there you are, having entered into this back and forth. And so, for example, um, somebody says to you, Well, I'm sorry that I couldn't get you. This was also from my first book. Like, I'm sorry that I couldn't bring home the kind of fish you want. And
Mhm.
um, so your then your husband in that case says, um, "Well, obviously you don't love me because if
Yeah.
you really loved me, you'd make sure you were at the grocery store at
Mhm.
the time when it opens so that they wouldn't run out of the fish that you know I like. I'm not gonna eat this crap." And, like, if any loving wife would know that. And so in that particular case, she was already in stage 3 gaslighting, so she was practically on his side, gaslighting
Mhm.
herself at the same time. But in another situation, you could imagine that, of course, she doesn't think that that's the case,
Mhm.
but she can't help but say she can't help because she doesn't wanna be seen that way, but say,
Mhm.
"I don't know, that's not the case. I really tried to get you." "Yeah, you really tried. If you had really tried, if you really loved me, this has nothing to do with how much I love you. You just don't know how to think straight about this. I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you what love is about, and
Yeah.
and this is not it."
Yeah. It's so funny. It's interesting because when you want to believe that this usually happens. I mean, the most, I guess, egregious example is someone you're married to or in a long-term relationship with, and you want to believe your partner is being honest and your partner is really, you don't wanna believe that the person who you love is gaslighting you. You don't wanna believe that. So I don't know if it's a you're when the willingness comes to willing to doubt your own perceptions, like, I'm willing to accept, like, maybe there's something wrong with me rather than willing to accept that I'm gonna let you gaslight me kinda thing. Is that what it sounds like? But
Well, yes, willing to believe that maybe they're right, willing
yes.
to entertain that perception, willing to jump into their shoes, and this is why gaslighting has been easier for women to fall into because women traditionally are encouraged to be nice,
Yeah,
be pleasing,
yeah,
and of course, we want to, whether we're a woman or men or involved with women or men, we want to please our spouse. So
yeah,
we're constantly looking for ways. Is this a possibility that that this could happen? Well, no, but I wanna join him on his side of I want us to see reality in the same way, which is another reason people allow themselves to go into the tango. Alright, so I guess it's possible that I did forget that.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Let me ask it in this back into the scenario of the boss to versus the woman who potentially getting railroaded out of the meetings. So, what if the boss legitimately isn't trying to railroad her and legitimately feels maybe she's being a little too sensitive about this? Is there like an intentionality aspect to the gaslighter for gaslighting to occur?
Um, that's a great question, and, the answer is maybe not.
Okay.
Not.
All right.
I mean, there is intention to get you to think a different way.
Mhm.
But it may not always be the malevolent husband who's trying to steal the jewels in the attic.
Yeah.
It may be the mother who's very afraid of their child going to a certain concert, and so they will gaslight them about, "Well, you're not like these other people who go to that concert," or the boss is saying, "No, no, no, maybe you're overworked and maybe you need to take a vacation."
Mhm.
At the
Mhm.
same time, depending on what happens next and next and next, because there are gaslighting moments. Like if that woman were to say, "No, that's not the case. It isn't the
Mhm.
case. These
Mhm.
things are happening around me and I'm seeing them. And can you give me can you shed some light on that?" And if the boss keeps persisting that they're not happening,
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
that becomes a gaslighting dynamic.
Yeah, let me ask you, like, kind of a different way. So, w when does different views and perceptions become gaslighting? Because in my mind, I'm looking at that and I'm going, well, she may have a view that she's being railroaded, and he has a view that he's not railroading at all. Maybe, maybe in that situation, it's just he didn't feel like it was necessary for her to be in that meeting. Not that he's trying to intentionally railroad her. He just didn't feel like it was pertinent to what she
Yes.
was doing. So when does it graduate from the perception to, okay, I'm being gaslit?
When the gaslighter or the potential gaslighter
Mm,
um, seeks to sow seeds of doubt in your own thinking. So
mm,
that's the manipulation. That's the emotional abuse. It's not that, no, I'm not inviting you because I don't think you belong there, or I'm not inviting you because it's no longer part of your job, or I'm not inviting you um, because I just didn't think it was appropriate. But of course, there's nothing going on with your job. I value you and I think you're great.
mhm.
And if that's the case, that's not gaslighting. That's just, I didn't invite you to these meetings and here's why. Or I am inviting you to meetings that I think are appropriate for your job.
Okay.
There's a difference between people disagreeing about something
Mhm,
and
mhm,
somebody trying to, there's something wrong with the way you're thinking.
mhm, mhm. Interesting.
Your perception's off.
Uh-huh.
You've
Mhm,
always been like this.
mhm, mhm,
You keep complaining about the same thing, but, like, really, I think that you're too sensitive. Because the
mhm,
point is, even if you're too sensitive,
mhm,
whatever that means, you're still being left out of the meetings,
mhm, mhm,
and so if you're not vulnerable to gaslighting, you might
mm,
say that. "Yes, I know, I'm so sensitive, it's really a problem. However, you're still not inviting me to the meetings, and I'd like to understand why."
yeah.
And
Yes.
so, my character and my memory and my um, perception is being undermined by you because you
Mhm.
want to tell me something that you want me to believe your reality. That's different than you're saying, this is the way I'm seeing it from my side.
Yeah.
And I hear you from what you're seeing on your side. And, I'll try to be more sensitive about when I'm setting up a meeting so that you know that you're not being invited because, it's not job appropriate, rather than you're being left out and undermined.
Yeah. I've sometimes described it when I've talked about this concept. I've said, "Perception is you both see a car drive down the road, and I say, 'The car is green,' and the other person says, 'The car is gray.'" And I was
Mhm.
like, "But gaslighting is, 'Hey, that car is green,' and the other person's like, 'The car's not even there.'" You know, where it's just like, "I'm pretty sure I saw a car." "No, you didn't see a car. There's no car there at all." Does that make
Gaslighting
sense?
also is, you think it's green? Well, everybody knows that you're not good at distinguishing colors. The car was gray, and
Mhm,
if you go back into, like, think about our last conversations, you're always getting it wrong.
mhm,
And,
mhm,
if I were you, I would, not put myself out there stating the color because 'cause you're gonna be
mhm,
wrong.
mhm. Interesting. Now, one another concept that well, actually, let me back up. You mentioned earlier women can be gaslit and men can be gaslit too. Does it show up differently with men and women?
No, not
Okay,
really.
okay.
I mean, women, at least in my own experience, I think that, men may be more surprised about it,
Yeah.
sometimes, but I would say, um, that often women are like, "I can't believe this happened to me. I can't believe I allowed myself to,
Mhm,
get involved." And the good thing about the fact that you do have to, in quotes, allow you that, second guessing of yourself and sending yourself down that rabbit hole is that if you can allow it, you can
mhm,
disallow. You
mhm.
can you can get yourself out with great pain and a lot of strategy, but you can get yourself out.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that I do wanna share is that in back into my history when I was seeing all these patients, uh, numbers of women who were coming in and complaining that like, what was wrong with them? That these men were they were giving their husbands such a hard time, or, like, what was going on and why were they so unreasonable, and why couldn't they follow the gaslighter's logic, which
Mhm.
tell you about in
Mhm.
a minute, I myself was being gaslighted by my husband, my ex-husband,
Mm. Mhm.
and I knew that I was being gaslighted. I it was around a particular, um, slice of our life being on time.
Mm.
So, I'm a pretty on time person, unless I can't be someplace, I
Right.
am where I am, where I'm supposed to be, when I'm supposed to be there, and, my ex-husband was late all the time, but very
Mhm.
late, not just 5 minutes, but, like, half hour, 20 minutes, and I would say, "I Can you please let me know if you're gonna be late for dinner? It's really I find it disrespectful, I'm happy to hold dinner, happy to warm it up later, but to not hear from you is really hard." And he would say, "You have a problem with time. Uh, your parents were obviously very anal, they must have been so uptight about time, and they taught you that people have to be exactly on time to show some respect or love. This No, it's not the way the world works."
Mhm.
And initially, not really being vulnerable to gaslighting, I thought, I and not realizing that's where I was headed, I would say, "Don't be silly."
Mhm.
Of course, people when they commit to a certain time, it's an agreement. If you are prepared to break the agreement, you can't make it, just be respectful, and it went on and on and on, to the point where then he persisted in, "Your parents taught you the wrong things about time, you are so uptight, and, you can't be flexible, and you're wrong,
Mhm.
and, you're the problem."
Mm.
I I was writing the book, and I thought, "Wait, this is what he's trying to do to me."
Mhm.
But I can't deny that there was a moment where I remember sitting in my, kitchen, uh, and thinking about it and thinking, "Well, could he be right?"
Yeah.
And from that moment on, it took me a while to right myself and to go back to, "He is not right. He's right for him. He's not right for me. He is not This is not the way the world works. Maybe his world is gonna work that way, but not mine."
Well, can I stop you right there and ask you a
Yeah,
question about that?
yeah,
So, yeah, and this might feed into what you were saying earlier. So you're in your head and you're thinking maybe he's right.
yeah.
Do you think the gaslighter is doing that same work? Like, does the gaslighter go, maybe she's right. Maybe I'm the one that's the problem here. Do you think that the gaslighter thinks that way?
No,
Yeah.
not in that moment.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe in a conversation, if the gaslighter is open to the conversation, if that happened and if you were my gaslighter and I said something to you and I said, like every time I say, "Well, like where have you been the last few nights?" You say to me, "Come on, stop being paranoid."
Mhm.
Um, I think, "Well, wait a minute, he's trying to get me to, like, back off and feel think I'm paranoid, and I don't wanna do that."
Right.
And hey, you know what? That's I don't like when you do that to me. I don't like when you twist those things on me, and, that's called gaslighting, and I'd like you to stop.
Mhm.
So, you could say, "Oh my god, gaslighting, I've heard about that. What is that?"
Mhm.
And so, "Well, you're trying to get me to believe that I'm the problem here when all I did was tell you that I couldn't reach you and ask you where you were."
Right.
And sometimes, maybe about 20-30% of the time, you'll say, "I didn't realize it, and, um, let's talk about it. Maybe I can learn maybe I can learn something." That might be extreme for somebody
Mhm.
to say in that moment, but it happens. But
Sure.
I don't wanna hurt you.
Mhm.
Most of the time, a gaslighter, certainly if they're invested in gaslighting you and are using gaslighting to take control of the moment, will say something like, "There you go,
Mhm.
listening to your therapist again. I don't know how you can deny that that's who you are. I don't know how you think that that's what happened when it didn't happen. I don't know how you can question me, rather than thinking you're paranoid." Like,
Mhm. Mhm. Interesting.
so the gaslighting can get worse, which
Yeah.
is one reason people have a hard time confronting people about gaslighting because it could get worse.
Mm.
And then the other piece that we were talking about, before you were recording that's very, very difficult,
Mhm.
and where many people get stuck is not wanting to let go of the interaction before they can get the gaslighter to think well of them
Mm.
or to see their point of view. So
Mhm.
I'm saying, "Wait a minute, I'm not paranoid. I just wanted to know where you were." "Oh, come on. You're so paranoid. Every time I'm away, you ask me, 'Where are you? Where are you?' I'm sick of it." And, "No, but I'm not paranoid. Remember you went on that," and so arguing
Mhm.
about who they are not after being accused of being something that they don't wanna take on and don't believe is true. So, having good emotion regulation skills, being able to manage yourself in that moment enough that you can calm enough to walk away and say, "Gotta let this go. I'm getting out of this power struggle, and it doesn't matter if he agrees with me. I'll worry about it
Mhm.
later."
Yeah. It's interesting as you're talking, what I'm thinking about is I've seen the movie Gaslight. It's an excellent movie, by the way. Just if anyone hasn't seen it, they should. I think it's on Amazon right now streaming. But anyway, it's a great movie, and but in that situation, it's easy to catch it. It's easy once you know what he's doing to recognize it's gaslighting because he's intentionally do it. He's doing it on purpose. He's got a specific purpose in mind for doing it. He is literally trying to make her go crazy, right? Like
Yes.
he wants to. So that's easy to pick out. But then there are other situations where it's hard to pick out. Like there was one part I specifically wanted to talk to you about where you talk about you give the different levels of gaslighting and you call one the good guy gaslighter,
Yeah.
right? So in that situation, you gave a couple. You said, okay, how do you know if you're dealing with a good guy gaslighter? And you said, would you describe yourself as perfectly happy in your relationship, but feel discouraged or numb or unhappy about life in general? Or does he ask you about your day, listen intently, and respond sympathetically, but you leave the conversation feeling worse than before? So my question in those situations is, how can you tell whether you are with a good guy gaslighter or there's just something inside of you, like maybe, general depression or something like that that's causing it? Does that make sense?
Yes, and it's a good question, and the answer is, it depends. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not an easy answer because sometimes it may be that
Mhm.
you are feeling depressed. Maybe you're feeling insecure and it's not about your spouse. Um,
Mhm.
maybe, it's hard for you to admit even
Mhm.
sometimes that you yourself didn't wanna visit your parents. But,
Mhm.
he after giving you 3 days of an argument about visiting your parents, he finally agreed to go and visit your parents, and he's miserable the entire time you're there, and then, in the car coming home, he said, "Well, what's your problem? I went.
Yeah.
I went to
Yeah.
see them." And maybe in that situation, you also were not happy when you were at your parents, and you're, um, blaming him for something that you're also feeling. But when you think
Mhm.
there's something wrong. And
Mhm.
so it's just a question of paying attention, noticing, writing things down, remembering your interactions, and really investigating your own life and your emotional life and your husband's behavior or your wife's behavior, your partner's behavior, and your own, and seeing what comes up for you. Like
Yeah.
that person, if you are noticing that you have a stomach ache every time you have dinner alone, that's a
Yeah.
signal. I don't know what
Yeah.
it's a signal about yet, but it's a signal that something's not okay.
Yeah, I think that reading that, what came up for me was I was like and I appreciate you bringing up that it depends and whatnot because it's so nuanced because I read that and I go, "Okay, wait a minute. He's asking about your day, he's listening intently, he's responding sympathetically, but then you're leaving feeling worse, so that's his fault." Well, what if it's not? What if he is legitimately caring about your day? He does really wanna know what's going on. And I think it sounds like to me that, um, there just seems to be, like, almost like, okay, there's something going on, you gotta explore what it is that's going on, and then later you might actually figure out either, okay, there's something inside of me, or there you have a good guy gaslighter here, but either way, you gotta figure it out. Do you think that maybe, like, if you see things improving over time with the behavior, that would be an indication one way or the other? Or how does one parse that out?
Well, even, a good guy gaslighter doesn't mean that, um, he may be harder to spot because if he's a good guy gaslighter, then he is also a good guy at the moments that he's not gaslighting you. It
Mhm.
Just because you're in a gaslighting relationship doesn't mean that every interaction is about that.
Sure.
But if in general you feel, um, less joy in your life, if you are, I mean, this is my checklist and, how do you know you're being gaslighted? If you are, um, reluctant to talk to your friends about the relationship because you don't wanna hear what they have to say, if you hide things so that you don't have to deal with things, if you feel like you're going crazy, you're confused or crazy,
Mhm.
half the time when you're with that person. I mean, the gaslighting, first of all, I wanna be sure that I'm saying directly that gaslighting can be very serious,
Mhm.
that it can go from being annoying, like,
Mhm.
"God, what does he mean I'm flirting with somebody on the street?" to
Yeah.
serious, where you went from him telling you that he doesn't like you flirting on the street to then a few months later, you're having to sit in a, and this is an actual case, um, sit in a restaurant facing the wall so nobody talks to you, so you don't have to dare to smile at them back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then blaming you for the bad time you just had at dinner because you were not your bubbly self,
Yeah.
right? So, um, it can start out with one-off comments that you dismiss, and if you watch the movie, and to our listeners today, if you watch the movie, they do in, like, the first part of the movie, um, after they move into their house that she used to live in as a
Yeah.
child, in, like, 10 to 20 minutes, what can take months in real life
Mhm.
to happen. You
Yeah.
see her go from saying, "Don't be silly," when he makes a comment to her about her memory, to actually doubting herself.
Mhm.
And, it gaslighting before it gets to stage 2 or stage 3 is interruptible. Like, "Hey,
Mhm.
this thing that you do, I don't really like it.
Yeah.
And, I'm just gonna go have a cup of tea right now so I can remember what happened. I don't want you to tell me what happened because I don't think you're right." But
Mhm.
the minute that you are more on his side or their side, the side of the gaslighter, than your own side, you're in trouble.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
then the gaslighting works even if they're not in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the longer you're in the relationship, the harder it is to get out. And
Yeah.
the first step is just to name it. Once you name it, then you can figure out, am I going to be able to get out of this relationship anytime soon? If I'm not, can I limit my
Mhm.
exposure to the abuse? Because make no mistake, it is emotional abuse when the
Mhm.
person is intentionally gaslighting you. And I guess I want to say, since I'm mindful of the time, that um, people are not born gaslighters.
Mm.
Gaslighters are not all the character that Charles Boyer played. They're not evildoers. They are perhaps fighting for their stability in a moment. So if
Mm.
I accuse you of cheating on me and you do not want to go anywhere near that, and I'm doing it in a veiled way, well, you said you were going to be in the office, but couldn't really reach you. And you don't want to out and out lie
Mhm.
or be caught in what was a lie, you will say to me, "What's wrong with you? Can't you talk about anything else? Like, I'm sick of talking about my nights at work. What did you do today?"
Mhm.
Right? And
Mhm.
so you didn't gaslight me in that moment to be evil. You
Mhm.
gaslit me because, um, you wanted me to get off your back.
Mm.
You wanted me to look elsewhere, to deflect.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I know. I wanna be mindful of the time. We spent so much time talking before we hit the record that we didn't get a full hour in, but, there's so many more things that I wanted to ask, you about that, but maybe the last couple of things is or the last thing I would ask you just generally is, uh, this is obviously your life's work, and you've brought this to the forefront. Do you think that, however, there has been, how do I put this? Uh I have viewed that there's a lot of times where it seems like a lot of people have picked up on social media and stuff like that, that stuff like this goes viral all the time, you know?
Yes.
And a lot of the time, the people who are doing it, they don't really have the credentials to really parse it out the way you have.
Mhm.
Do you think that's a danger? An unintended consequence? How does someone fight against maybe getting bad information about gaslighting?
So those are different questions, and I'll answer
Yeah.
them. So I would say that uh, getting good information about gaslighting means going to people who are credentialed and have been writing about gaslighting for a while. Like myself, I wrote the first book that became really popular called The Gaslight Effect, and there are other people doing research. Uh, Paige Sweet was doing research and wrote a book a couple of years ago. She's at the University of Michigan. There are a couple of other books that people do talk about gaslighting. People who write about narcissism, like Yanya Lalich and Christina Coccioli and Dr. Ramani, they are very well versed in gaslighting as being Lisa Sonny, who I just met last week, and um, she's been writing about gaslighting as well, but under talking about what her specialty is, and for Dr. Romani and Christina Coccioli and Janya Lalich, narcissism and coercive control are
Mhm.
their specialties. And with Lisa Sonny, trauma bonding, and I forgot the name of the incredible woman who wrote about fawning, which is um, also where there's she knows quite a bit about gaslighting. So go to the experts.
Yeah,
Go to my website. I
yeah.
mean, I have a lot of information on my website. I've written quite a bit, like a small series a few years ago with my colleague Mark Brackett on gaslighting. It's in the Washington Post. I frequently write about gaslighting in articles in different places. And people are welcome to email me and ask me questions.
Yeah,
And
so let me ask you, because I wanna be respectful of your time, where can people find you?
so they can find me at robinstern.com,
Okay,
and they
great.
can find my podcast, the Gaslight Effect podcast. Um,
Mhm.
and if people want to tell their story and to come on the podcast, I'd be happy to hear uh, from you and talk about that. And I hope that you will come on my podcast, and I hope I could be back on your podcast because we certainly didn't finish this conversation.
No, definitely, I was just gonna say, we gotta have you back. We're gonna have to set up another one of these because there's so much more to go into, and yeah, I'd be happy to come on. We talked about a couple of things, particularly about lawyers and about
Yeah.
religion and different things, and I believe me, I could talk about all of those things. I'd love to connect with you in that way, and, I'm grateful you came on and gave me the time. This has been really illuminating. I think it's gonna be helpful and meaningful for a lot of people that I know in my personal life who listen to the podcast. I've been bright we've been trying to get this set for a long time, and so when I told them you were coming on, everyone was like, "Yes, yes, yes." So I'm very excited about that, and I'm sure after this, you're gonna get a bunch of people from California buying your book.
Oh,
So
well, that's great. And as long as it's helpful, that's my goal. And I do wanna share that with your listeners, and also to just tell you directly that, I've loved our conversation, and I think that the fact that it has been a conversation is really it makes it easier for people to hear it and take it in and relate to their own life. And you've asked me really interesting and very nuanced questions, which many of them were new. So I appreciate that because the more nuanced and the more specific um, we can get, and the more we can name exactly what's going on, the better chance we have of freeing ourselves and getting back to our own truth.
Yeah. I've appreciated it because like I told you before we came on, I warned you, I'm like, I'm an attorney and I get in the weeds and you know, but I find when we have those conversations, like when people question my beliefs
Yeah.
and it's something I haven't heard, it either makes me change the belief or it sharpens it so that like I think these conversations are so important. That's why I did the podcast. So that
Yeah.
that way we can have conversations where now hopefully I will come away with a better understanding of what gaslighting is. Maybe some of the questions will help you. So the next time it's asked, you'll be more ready for it. And maybe, and that's how I believe these conversations are so important for that reason. So we're definitely going to have you back and we're
Wonderful.
definitely gonna do it again. And anytime you want me to come on yours, I'm happy to do that too.
My team will reach out, definitely. Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. We'll see you.
Great to be here. Thank you.